I wanted to ensure that the next time I got to 3 AM, I could keep going as far as possible, which means having good coins, good power, and good cycle time. Now, in the strategy portion, I never really mentioned these, because power and cycle time are both pretty intuitive. To have good power, just make sure you don't miss any me birds and don't forget any closed doors. It sounds easy enough, but oftentimes I would look at the usage bar while in the cams and notice, hey, that's not what the power gen fan and cams look like. Then I'd end up closing and opening every single door to find which one was shut and lose like half my power doing it. It's just one of those keyboard torture things that you have to adjust to. Cycle time is pretty self-explanatory, you just have to be fast. Interestingly though, out of these three metrics, the hardest isn't cycle time or power. The hardest is actually coins. In base NDC, you barely even notice coins as a threat. You just farm like 20 at the beginning, then naturally you'll earn enough throughout the night that you'll always be able to afford plushies. However, in Hopeless Pursuit, coins are a lot more strict. Real quick, let's talk about how absurdly rich you need to be in Hopeless Pursuit. So, all three plushies cost 60 Faz coins each for a total of 180 coins, and Rockstar Freddy's greedy ass literally never stops asking for coins, so we're paying him 4 times per hour starting at 1 AM. 4 times 5 times 5 is 100, so we need to get 280 coins total throughout the entire night to win. Remember that plushies now cost 60 whole coins to buy, and your coins are capped at 70. You'd think that the increased frequency of door characters would make up for this, since every time a door character hits a door, you're awarded a coin. But there's a strange quirk with both Deluxe and Vanilla UCN. Coins are only awarded when you block door characters separately. For example, let's say Nightmare spawns at the right door and Ballora spawns with him. When you shut the door, you'll hear 2 bonks right away, or one loud bonk indicating that they both left, but you'll only be awarded with 1 coin. The reason that this happens is because the sound file of the bonk ending is actually what gives you your coin. So when a second sound cue interrupts that first sound cue, you'll only get 1 coin for both sound cues. This isn't really a problem in Vanilla UCN or normal Deluxe, because door characters don't spawn that often. But in Hopeless Pursuit, with characters like Nightmare that can spawn every 2 seconds, there's bound to be some door overlaps. Because of stuff like this, you have to farm a ton more coins at the beginning of the night to compensate. By 13 seconds, you want to have about 24 to 27 coins. Then, after you finish the first mini cam cycle, you want to keep farming so that you have 40 coins by 26 seconds. This adds a ton more difficulty to the beginning of the night, but the paying with coins doesn't end there. If you've played through the first hour of the night correctly, you should be at about 64 to 67 Faz coins on the hour change. If you've done everything right, during the next cam cycle, you're going to hit the coin cap of 70 coins. Which means that on top of being the tightest camera and office cycle on the hour change, we now have to buy a plushie in this cycle. So we'll now have to spend roughly an extra 3/4 of a second in the cameras, which means the super ultra evil office cycle at 105 is now even stricter. In earlier runs, I would usually just buy the plushie on the 111 camera cycle, since that camera cycle gives you a lot more time than the hour change one. But if you're actually intent on beating the full night, buying the plushie here would mean that you wouldn't have enough coins at 5 AM for the last plushie, and you could suffer the dreaded 559 death. And this has actually happened. Sero, the third Hopeless Pursuit victor, ended up not having enough coins for the 5 AM plushie and died at 559. Even though I didn't expect to get that far from 3 AM, I wasn't going to take any chances, so I made sure to always buy this plushie on the first cycle. I also strangely started to have a lot more trouble with Chica, specifically on the 144 interval.
There's no way. There's no way.
This would usually be a music change interval if Chica wasn't desynced, but this interval managed to match up perfectly with the part of the Pots and Pans audio file that was completely silent. So you either had to listen for a really long time or just take the gamble. This made the 1 AM hour change and the 144 my biggest choke points in the night. And when I got back to attempts on the 3rd of January, it was like the wall had reformed and I just couldn't get past 1 AM anymore. I thought that eventually this would pass. If I kept playing, I'd eventually get consistent with it. So, January 4th went by, then the 5th, marking 2 weeks straight that I had been playing HP every single day. And now it was really starting to wear on me. Every single day I woke up knowing that I had to play Hopeless Pursuit for pretty much the entire day. Otherwise, I felt like I wasn't trying my hardest to honor Bones' memory. It was at this point that I also started to feel some physical injuries as well. I began to develop blisters on my mouse hand, on my ring and pinky from gripping the mouse, and my shoulders started to get tired faster from holding up my hands on the mouse and keyboard. At this point, I started to get really anxious anxious that I wasn't going to make the deadline anymore. Beating HP by January 19th sure sounded doable when I had first gotten the 303, but now that 4 whole days had passed with no progress, I wasn't so sure. I really needed this done by the deadline to have any hopes of getting the video out in a realistic time span, so I began to alter my daily routine in order to give myself more time to play HP. I would only eat 2 meals a day, and I began working out for 1 hour every day rather than 3 hours 3 times a week. That way I could at least have some form of break in between gameplay. And now I was genuinely wondering, was this the right choice? I'm gonna let you guys in on some insider information for being a gaming challenge YouTuber. If you want to get as many views as possible, you have to find a challenge that is really easy to do, but sounds really hard. If you want proof of this, look no further than my own channel. My most popular video is beating FNAF 4 without using the doors, despite this being the easiest FNAF challenge that I have ever done. All of the "is it possible to beat this without this" videos are like this, and I was kinda shaken up after realizing that I wasn't gonna hit my proper upload deadline. By the 2-week mark on any normal video, I would have already beaten the challenge and had the script fully complete, but here, all I had was a 3 AM at best with no signs of progression. I was thinking back to the earlier phases of my channel, the FNAF lock days, where Toy Bonnie was the hardest enemy on this channel, and now it was just this. I guess you could say this had shown how far I had come. FNAF Lock was literally nothing now in terms of skill. But I don't know, in a strange way, I kind of missed it. Ultimately though, I had to remember that I wasn't doing this for a successful video. Sure, it would be nice if the video did well. I really wanted this video to be the one that defines my channel from here on out, so liking, commenting, or subscribing would mean the world to me. But in the end, this video was to honor Bones, and it had to be special. With that mentality, I kept pushing on, trying to scale this impossibly tall personal best wall. I didn't realize at the time, but the reason that I was stuck was buying the plushie at the 056 cycle. And I'm sure my consistency had been getting better, but my brain was still so focused on that HP best time number that stared me in the face every time I wanted to start another game. On January 7th, 16 days in, I still hadn't scaled the wall. But I had hope, as I was finally getting some improvement in my average run. Having a high personal best is one thing, because that's just one run out of many, but getting a higher average run means that a personal best is right around the corner. And on January 8th, 17 days into my HP streak, this happened.
Oh, the wall has been broken. Holy f***. By 3 seconds, the wall has been broken.
For 6 days, I fought tooth and nail, playing every day with all I had for 3 seconds. And though it may seem like a small step, this was huge. My average run past coin farming was now a late 1 AM to early 2 AM. Now I had so many more chances to get up to that 3 AM. And this wasn't just another fluke. This was proof that I could consistently reach 3 AM. I managed to once again reach 3 AM with a 312 on that same day.
Wow. On cycle 2.
Things might not have been looking good deadline-wise, but at least I finally had a fighting chance to actually beat the mode. After finally breaking the 303 wall, I was in good spirits, and the next day, I proved it, jumping all the way from 312 to 348 with another fluke. Once again, this was another big jump in personal bests, but this time I knew what to expect. I knew that for the next day or two, I probably wasn't going to get any personal bests as I had to work my way back up from the fluke that I had just gotten. So I kept grinding away, getting more and more runs into that mid 2 to low 3 AM range. January 10th and 11th passed with no progress, which meant that I probably wasn't going to hit the deadline. And I was starting to realize that the stress of beating HP by January 19th was just going to make me play worse. At the pace I was at, I wasn't going to make it by then, and I think I just had to accept that. And then everything changed.
Ooh, crap. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
442, a fluke by nearly a full in-game hour. This was getting scary. Not only did I have really good power up until the very end, I had bought both the first and second plushie at the correct times, and I had good coin pace. Even with insane nerves, I had only bled about a second in cycle time, and ultimately I died to a mistake, not to getting checked by one of the cycle characters. This run had a very real possibility of beating the knight. You have to understand that at this point, I couldn't even imagine actually beating the knight. It's hard to quantify in a video like this how much time that I had spent at this point. This was day 23 of playing Hopeless Pursuit every single day in a row. And remember, the majority of runs were still just dying at coin farming over and over again. And every day I had to spend about 20 minutes warming up just to get absolutely nowhere. But this was a shock. The fact that I was legitimately in range of beating the knight, the fact that I could actually do this, I genuinely couldn't believe it. I could do this for bones. So you're probably wondering, these past two personal bests that I've gotten were followed by massive walls. Would this one be the same? Would I have to wait a whole nother week and fight for a few more seconds? January 16th, day 25. The Bones 5 has reached 5 AM on Hopeless Pursuit. That 442 wasn't a fluke. Just 2 days later, I had broken the 5 AM barrier for the first time. On any other FNAF challenge, this would be a soul-crushing failure, but on Hopeless Pursuit, this was a massive step forward. And now, in a matter of days, that deadline was looking reasonable. That 5 AM run had good power and good coins. I only ended up losing because of poor cycle time and a mistake with Phantom Mangle. I had barely missed the camera button to despawn her, and she had pulled down my camera monitor. Panicked, I tried to see what I had to do in the office, and I didn't notice Scrap Baby looking up at me. At this point, we were on day 25, January 16th. I had 3 days left to beat the night before I had to go back to college. I knew that going back to college, adjusting to a new setup, and beating it there would delay this video more than it already had been. But this personal best may have also led to my greatest mental downfall. When I was still stuck on the walls of 303 and 348, I had come to terms with the fact that I probably wasn't going to be able to beat the night on time, and that I would have to beat it at college. But now it was do or die. I needed to beat it here, and that activated one of Hopeless Pursuit's biggest strengths, nerves. I haven't really talked about nerves up until this point, but for every single personal best I would get on HP, I would get extremely nervous. This usually resulted in a bit of brain fog when dealing with keyboard-heavy characters, and a ton of shakes on my mouse hand, which obviously didn't help with aiming. Personal best nerves are one thing, but 5 AM nerves are an entirely different beast. I would say that I built up pretty good nerve control with how many challenges I've done. Cuphead No Hit and Dark Souls No Death SL1 both had difficult final bosses at the end of hour, or even multi-hour long runs in the case of Dark Souls. I had beaten all of the FNAC 3 max modes, which are known for testing your nerves and aim, and I had done long-term FNAF challenges like the Gauntlet, FNAF Lock, and the 6-hour real-time challenge, all of which give you crazy nerves. But Hopeless Pursuit nerves are different. And I think the game knows how nervous you're going to be. You see, the game pulls a very clever trick on you once you reach 5 AM. If you remember earlier when we were talking about the ducks and vents for the first time, you'll see that every character has been given a new and distinct icon to make it easier to see who's who. Well, once 5 AM hits, the icons in the ducks and vents will revert back to their original vanilla forms, along with the retextured Golden Freddy. If you take away nerves, this doesn't affect your gameplay at all. Remember, the ducts and HP are just an aim test. You just change the lure around and you don't really have to think about it at all. And the vent icons are still very distinct. But what this change does is that it lets you know It is 5 a.m. and you can't ignore it. You can't just imagine it's an earlier hour. And wow, it does its job well. I feel like now is also a good time to mention my opinions on difficult characters had switched drastically now that I'd gotten so much better at HP. If we look at the list of tier 1s that I had previously made, you'd see that I put a lot of weight on aim-based characters. In fact, the entire top 4 were all aim-based. But now, I felt like that had changed. Nightmare Unit and Office Cycles as a whole weren't really that difficult for me aim-wise, since I had now fully mastered the circle method. But keyboard characters were an entirely different story. Door characters, OMC, and Lolbit were all giving me a lot of trouble, especially in the later hours where I was known to choke. Let's take an example of an office cycle in this clip here. This isn't particularly far into the night, but it's a good example. Now, whenever I would play HP, I'd always have a small internal cue in the back of my brain telling me which characters I had to prioritize and deal with first. In this specific instance, characters like OMC and especially Lolbit overloaded my queue, and I kind of forgot about Nightmare until the very end. Then I wasn't fast enough to get rid of Lolbit and OMC to deal with Nightmare. And nerves really only amplified this. If I could control my nerves, Hopeless Pursuit was in reach. I ended up getting that 503 pretty late in the day on the 16th, so I just decided to prepare for tomorrow as the day that I should beat it instead of attempting more runs later into the night. Generally, the late morning to early afternoon were the best hours for playtime, most likely because I was already warmed up and not quite fatigued yet from multiple hours of playing throughout the day. Earlier during the 303 wall section, I had mentioned how I started to develop blisters on my hands from playing so much. Usually, these blisters would fade as I slept, then when I woke up, my hands would be healed enough to play for the first few hours of the day, then the wounds would start to irritate again. Realistically, this probably wasn't a good approach. Just taking one day off could have made a world of a difference, but I was so set on the mindset of if I take a day off, I am not honoring bones, and then I just couldn't. So after I had my warm-ups for the day, I started my runs. At this point, it was the 17th of January, and I had put a lot of pressure on myself to beat Hopeless Pursuit on this specific day. Every day of my winter break, I had spent either editing the previous video, then playing Hopeless Pursuit every single day. If I could beat HP today, I'd at least have 2 days where I could finally take a break. And slowly but surely, it was looking that way. I had bought the first plushie on time with 10 coins left over. The best possible scenario. I completed the cycle of death without much struggle, losing no cycle time. I was able to hear the 144 Chica and got past that. Then down went 2 a.m. and then 3 a.m. The moment I bought the second plushie, nerves began to kick on, but I kept playing. I passed 4 a.m. on cycle, and with good power. In fact, I wasn't just on power pace, I was 6% ahead of it. I maintained cycle time all throughout 4 a.m., and for the first time ever, I entered 5 a.m. on cycle. During the 503 personal best, I was around 5 seconds off cycle. So this was a drastic improvement. I almost got caught by Phantom Balloon Boy right as the hour changed, but I reacted quickly. For the first time, I actually saw the visual changes. It shook me to my core. My body was freezing up, I was shaking, but I was still on cycle, and I was still playing. This was it. This was going to be it. This was what I was fighting for this whole time. Most players get 2 or 3 5 a.m.s before winning. It's realistic. The past month that I had spent fighting, day in and day out, it all built up to this. Everything I had fought for, to honor Bones, it was perfect. I was thinking to myself, this would be narratively perfect for the video. I was going to be free, it was finally going to be over. But as I opened the cameras for the 11-second cam cycle, all of my nerves went away, and I realized this was real life. I am not in a movie, this isn't a written story, because I only have 40 coins. And Nightmare Bonnie, he wants 60. By the time I had paid Rockstar Freddy at the next office cycle, it hit me. In order to be on pace to win with coins, you need to have about 35 to 40 when the hour changes. But I only had 38, and it was almost halfway through the hour. No matter how well I played, this run was doomed. When I realized what was going on, I think my body just instinctively gave up. I died from some keyboard mistake, but that really, at the core, wasn't the reason. I think I just didn't want to have a 559 death so badly that I internally just threw the game away. So what went wrong? How did I lose so many coins? When I bought the first plushie, I had 10 coins left over, which is the literal best case scenario. But between the hours of 1 AM to 3 AM, I had so many door character overlaps and lost so many potential coins. Not only did the vent characters clump up a lot, but I also have this weird habit where I always close Freddy's door right when Nightmare Fredbear spawns, which takes care of both of them with one door close. I always try to naturally be very power efficient when I play, and this is the more power efficient move. But every time that I did it, I'd lose one potential coin that I could get from blocking them off separately. And doing this throughout these first 2 hours led me to reaching the 311 cam cycle and not having enough to buy the second plushie on time. Instead, I had to buy it on the 3rd cycle of the hour, which is normally when you'd buy the 5 AM plushie. And from here, I didn't really have a way of getting more coins. So I ended up not having enough by the end. I was so close, but at the same time, I was so far. And the worst part was that I really didn't know what to do. I had coin farmed as hard as I could at the beginning of the night, and clearly it had worked out. I had as many coins as possible by the first plushie, but I was losing so many potential coins naturally over time. Well, at least we know one thing. Gameplay-wise, I am now skilled enough to survive the entire night. The issue is no longer speed. So what can we do to get more coins midway through the night? Well, we have 2 options here. We can either learn some vent character intervals, or find some way to coin farm midway through the night. In the middle of the night, the most common way that I found I would lose potential coins is from the vent characters bunching up, then closing the vent on all of them at once when I heard an entered sound cue or saw Molten Freddy on the cameras. To ensure that we block all 3 of these characters separately and get as many coins as possible, we could close the front vent exactly when the 3 of them arrive individually. Springtrap will always appear every 37 seconds, Molten Freddy will always appear every 27 seconds, and Entered will always appear every 19 seconds. Honestly though, I didn't want to have to track intervals on top of everything else that I was already dealing with in HP. I had a hard time tracking Freddy in NDC, and he was only on 50-second intervals. So this option was out of the question. So what else can we do?
Please deposit 5 coins. Please deposit 5 coins.
That's right, do you remember that extremely chaotic first 20 seconds of the game where we coin farm? What if we did that mid-office cycle? Not only do you look super cool when you do this, it's actually, in my opinion, the best way to get back on coin pace. I noticed that now that I was getting consistently deep runs, my speed in the cameras was getting a lot better, and oftentimes I'd have a bit of spare time left over on the 122 and 222 office cycles. So why not use some of that time to farm a few coins and get back on pace? And this seemed to work. Any runs that got past both coin farming office cycles always had good coins. So I had the skill to survive until the end, and now I had a way to get good coins, power, and cycle time. All I had to do was actually do it. I had 2 days left until the deadline, so I had to make it happen. But this deadline, man, it just broke my spirit. Knowing that I only had 2 days left amplified the nerves of any run that got decently far tenfold. I had plenty of 4 AM runs, but any run that I had past the second plushie would just instantly die to nerves. And honestly, I'm convinced that if I wasn't a YouTuber and the livelihood of my channel wasn't on the line, I would have beaten Hopeless Pursuit a lot sooner, or at least on good runs gotten significantly less nervous. The second to last day came and went, and I awoke on the final day, January 19th. When I woke up, I went downstairs to start up runs, and I had a feeling today will be the day, just because it's the last day, because it would be cinematic, because it would be right. But this is real life. Once again, I was forced to realize that no, I really can't beat it today. I had spent almost all the time that I had the past 2 days on Hopeless Pursuit, and mentally, physically, I just couldn't do it. I had stressed earlier how bad the 303 wall was for my mental state, but the final wall of actually beating the night was on an entirely different level. I was forced to accept the fact that this video is going to take a long time, and just trust that my audience will be patient. And if you've watched this far into the video, it shows that you were, and I cannot thank you enough. At this point, I was forced to just cut my losses and realize that I would have to beat it at college. college dorm, I was both nervous and relieved. For one, the deadline didn't really exist anymore. I had failed to meet it, so now I was just wondering which day it was going to happen. My biggest fear was that I wasn't going to be able to adjust to a new setup, and that my skill wouldn't transfer very well. But thankfully, I was able to prove that wrong on the very same day, as I managed to get a 4 AM at the college setup. I knew that I had retained my skill. Now, all I had to do was pick up where I left off. On the 21st, I crossed over the 30-day mark for total days of playtime that I had spent in a row, and overall didn't make much progress. However, on the 22nd, I had finally worked back up and got my third 5 AM run. It had been 5 days since the last run to 5 AM, which seemed scary at first. Was every 5 AM run going to take 5 days to achieve? Well, a few hours later, I was on track to proving that wrong. This was the classic fail of keyboard overloading and the cue system that I mentioned earlier getting messed up. The moment that I had pulled up the cameras, Nightmare had spawned. But I was visually focused on Orville being right at the duck entrance. And then Afton completely overwrote the idea of Nightmare in my cue and I ended up folding. My keyboard hand and mental state were just too shaky. But this did show one thing. I think that I was honestly better at my college dorm than at the home setup. It might have had to do with some nerdy stuff like the monitor distance or seat height, or honestly just the fact that I was forced to take breaks to go to class and do college stuff. But looking back at all my recent challenges, I'd beaten every single one here, so maybe I was just better acclimated to this setup. And the next day proved it. A fifth 5 AM, this time the Funtime Foxy. I was getting a 5 AM every single day, sometimes even multiple in one day. With all of them having good power and coins, I could feel that my skill was increasing, and maybe soon I could break the final wall. Day 33, January 24th, was the first Friday of the semester, so I knew that I had to make it count. And off the bat, I did. Right after I had warmed up, I managed to get a 516, dying to Chica because I had forgotten to change the music on the previous cycle. This definitively proved that 5 AMs were no longer flukes. They were consistent, and the next one had potential to go the whole way. At this point, the wall was still 530, and it had held for 6 days. And I was really hoping that the next 5 AM would be the last.
Always come back.
Oh my god, what? I opened that shit like 1 frame too early, bro.
As per usual with Hopeless Pursuit, every time a wall is broken, it can only be by a few seconds, no matter how far into the night we are. At long last, the 7-day 530 wall had fallen to a 540. Now, if you were listening closely, you might have been confused as to why I even died here. You can hear the vent door shut, and then Afton just kills me anyway. Well, would you believe me when I said that I opened this door 3 frames too early? That's right, pretty much the only thing standing between me and finally being done with this hell was 0.05 seconds. I'll say it now, Afton is the stupidest door character in Ultimate Custom Night. So remember earlier how I said that every door character leaves after 0.5 seconds with their door closed? That is true for every door character except for Afton. Afton instead has a timer that starts at 70 frames and counts down. Once that timer reaches 1, he'll check if the vent is closed, and if it isn't, he enters and jump scares you. When you're constantly being bombarded with door characters and HP, and literally all of them leave on this 0.5 second condition, Afton completely destroys this muscle memory. He seems like he's fast when you want him to be slow, and he's slow when you want him to be fast. But this specific death, this one wasn't just an ordinary keyboard overload death. This was different. You see, when I play HP, the motions that my hands make need to follow a rhythm of some sort. It's kind of like the classic pat your head and rub your stomach test, where you have to do 2 different things with your brain. So for me, when I'm clicking things with the mouse, I'm always going to sync my clicks with keyboard inputs. You can see it as early as coin farming. I always open the side vent as I click Helpy. So watch as my mouse slowly makes its way up to Rockstar Foxy's 5% power, Then, the moment I click that, my brain has to click the F key, and the vent is open. All that I had left in this run was one singular camera cycle, buying the last plushie, and that would be it. Even though I was upset about this fail, that wasn't even the first 5 AM of the day. If I was getting multiple 5 AMs per day, I knew that it wouldn't be too long until I had another chance. But would you believe it if I told you that wasn't even my worst fail in Hopeless Pursuit? Are you serious, bro? Oh my god, are you serious? A lot of people have asked me what my worst fail in FNAF is, and up until this point, I would have said the 550 during the 420 mode real-time challenge. For those who don't know, this past summer I made a video where I beat FNAF 1's 420 mode in real time, so it actually took 6 hours. And in that video, I ended up dying at 550, wasting 5 hours and 50 minutes of my life. When I first had this fail, I wondered, even if I got 559 on HP, the hardest challenge at the time, would this still be the worst? And I thought, yes, surely it was. It was a 5 hour and 50 minute fail. And I was wrong. The 6 hour fail may have cost me 5 hours of my life, but that challenge itself only took me 1 day. And this was day 33 of Hopeless Pursuit. The moment after this run happened, I was forced to go to class, which killed all my momentum for the rest of the day. And in my head, I was just repeating, why didn't you grab the guitar? Why didn't you grab the guitar? Why didn't you just grab the guitar? It was so easy, literally right there. The reason that I think I missed it was just due to nerves and finally reaching the last plushie. When I opened cams on the 541 cycle, the only thing that I was thinking of was buy the plushie, you better not forget to buy the plushie. But I had totally forgotten Rockstar Bonnie. And once I got to the end of the camera cycle, I just thought, you have to get out of the cameras as fast as possible so the masked characters don't kill you. Get out now. But I had just totally forgotten about the guitar. The rest of the day, I was still getting relatively consistent runs. But that 1 hour period right before I got the 554 was clearly the prime of the day. And ultimately, with 4 5 AMs that day, I couldn't close it out on day 33. Sunday, January 25th, 2025. I awoke and immediately got another 5 AM. No consistency was lost. This was the last day of the weekend, so if I had any time to finally close it out, it would be now. With how long that I had been playing, I'd estimate that I was around the 100-hour mark. I had spent the past month straight playing Hopeless Pursuit. It had been a full month since Bones had passed away. I had suffered through mental walls and physical ones. And at 2:45 PM, I gave Hopeless Pursuit one more try.
Oh my god, I beat Hopeless Pursuit. Oh my. Oh. Oh my god, I beat Hopeless Pursuit. Oh my god, I beat Hopeless Pursuit. Oh.
My god, this video can finally stop fucking showing up in my recommendations, I think.
I had finally done it. After a month straight of playing no video games except for UCN Deluxe and Hopeless Pursuit every single day in a row, I had finally completed Hopeless Pursuit. I can't even put into words the feeling of pure relief that I had on this day. I just went outside and walked for almost 2 hours straight. Everything felt amazing. And I want to give a huge thank you again to Firefuel for helping me to get this far, and teaching me everything about this game. So, was that it? Was this really the end? Had I reached the eternal peak of my channel? I thought so. I began scripting this video and editing it for the next month. All throughout January and into February, that was the narrative that I was going to go with. That it was finally over and I could rest. But it wasn't all celebration. Throughout this whole video, I referred to Hopeless Pursuit as the hardest FNAF challenge ever. But that actually isn't true. Hopeless Pursuit was the hardest FNAF challenge when I started practicing for this video, all the way back when I started Vanilla UCN. And since then, it had moved one spot down, dethroned by Ultimatum. At first, this didn't bother me. Ultimatum is the max mode of UCN Recode, a different mod of UCN, and victors of both Ultimatum and Hopeless Pursuit say that they're roughly equal in difficulty, but Ultimatum just barely beats Hopeless Pursuit out. And as I was scripting and editing this video, as the weeks passed, the thoughts in the back of my mind slowly crept up louder and louder. You didn't beat the hardest FNAF challenge, you lied in the title, you didn't honor Bones. And eventually, I couldn't ignore it any longer. As of writing this script, I have no idea when this video is going to come out. It's already been far longer than it should be, but I was willing to take as long as I needed in order
Would
to
have been
truly
really
honor
nice
Bones.
to have Little
So
Knight to
where do we go
banish
from here? Are we going to have
the
to learn a
field
whole
spell
new
there.
game? Then the HP level max mode of that game? No. I'm not going to resort to Ultimatum. If I want to honor Bones, I'm not going to beat the top one, I'm going to surpass it. If Hopeless Pursuit isn't harder than Ultimatum, then I'm going to make it harder than Ultimatum. This is Hopeless Pursuit Pure Greed.
5 points. 5 points. 5 points.
Fuck it, let's go to rank with this and just see how it plays out without Little Knight.
5 points.
That's right, if Hopeless Pursuit isn't the number one, then I'll take it beyond number one with self-imposed challenges. In NDC Deluxe, there is a challenge known as Pure Greed, where you have to save enough coins throughout the night to not only buy the 3 plushies to survive, but also buy the death coin and have the 499 coins left over when you complete the night. Jesus, dude. Pure Greed is already very difficult on NDC Deluxe, but no one had even thought of the next step up until now. Let me introduce...
That's definitely the Smash Melee Smash sound when you hit something with a baseball bat. Yeah, that's ripped straight out.
Absolutely insane because you have to coin farm on every office cycle. Sometimes even double fastest coin farms on
Let's go.
cycles. Sometimes the keyboard chaos is so bad that you literally just can't survive. In this clip, I have Threadbare, Nightmare, beating from the camera flip, see and love it. So what do you think the correct sequence of inputs is here? Well, it's actually none of these keys. It's the escape key, so you can click a knight. To put this into perspective, when I was first starting out, I couldn't even do a me-bird office cycle at 1 AM. Now, we're doing a full me-bird office cycle so fast that we have enough time to pull up the cameras twice to get 4 more coins. You also now have to be much faster compared to normal Hopeless Pursuit. Using the cameras to farm coins in office cycles makes the masked characters angry, and they'll spawn really early in camera cycles, meaning they'll have to be extremely fast in the camera cycles so their kill timer doesn't run out and you die. So you'll need better speed and aim. Combining all of this, I'd say that Hopeless Greed is roughly 1.5 to 2 times harder than normal Hopeless Pursuit, which means that this is the definitive hardest FNAF challenge ever as of recording this video.
I'm not playing around, dude.
Hopeless Greed, I had rebeaten Hopeless Pursuit about 20 times, and I can confidently say it's a pretty big difference. I even went ahead and did Hopeless Pursuit is Dead, which takes inspiration from the Geometry Dash community, and means that you did something 3 times in a row.
I'm gonna guess they have no non-engine, or all their non-engines are board breakers.
And even after this, I would still consider Hopeless Greed to be harder than doing Hopeless Pursuit 3 times in a row. No one had even thought to attempt this until I started making this video. So I was going into completely uncharted territory, and I had to make my own strategy. So here's what happened. At the beginning of the game, you're going to need 30
I didn't mean to, whatever. They might have noticed the toggle. Okay then, they just didn't have anything. I don't know what they're playing.
In every office cycle. This increases the speed of the gameplay by an insane margin, and makes some characters in particular extremely difficult. Let's talk about our runner-ups first. The Puppet is now one of the most annoying characters in the night, simply because winding the box takes so much time. Remember that masked characters will spawn really fast in the cameras because we're farming in office cycles. So having to spend so much time on winding the box forces us to be extremely fast everywhere else in the cameras. Because of this, every character that requires precise aim and mouse movement in the cameras is now much harder. The ducks feel a lot stricter, and Toy Freddy can lead to loads of time loss if you aren't insanely precise with his super small camera icons.
This is a generic enough side deck.
But no character is nearly as downright insane as Rockstar Bonnie. Oh my god! As if Rockstar Bunny didn't already get it as hard enough with the 554 back in Hopeless Pursuit, In Hopeless Greed, he is easily the most difficult character by a pretty wide margin.
Oh shit.
Characters that have kill timers in the cameras are always a problem in Hopeless Greed. The entire gameplay loop of HG involves speeding through
Oh my
the
god!
as fast as possible in order to make up more time later in the
Let's fucking go, it's a ditto!
So, any character that has a kill timer based on when you drop the cameras is really, really bad in Hopeless Greed. Toy Freddy and Rockstar Bonnie both have these, but one is much worse than the other. We always know where Toy Freddy is going to be, and dealing with him doesn't take that much time. But Rockstar Bonnie could be in any of his four spawns, and if this guitar happens to spawn in Funtime Cove all the way at the end of the camera cycle, the speed of the cameras required to carry a guitar before this timer runs out is insane, especially if you're on the plushie cycle. Now normally, when plushies at the first 1 AM cycle, the second 3 AM cycle, and the third 5 AM cycle, but that's not going to cut it anymore, so you need to end it out with 7 If you're on pace, you should be able to buy the second plushie on the 2 AM cam cycle, then the third plushie on 4 level, which should give you enough time to farm up the 70 coins needed to complete the night. Now, when you look at these plushie times, you might be wondering, if we buy the second plushie at 211 and the third one at 411, how do we know who the second hand control is so we don't die at 4 AM for the plushie? And that, my friend, is the funny part. You don't know. On top of Hopeless Greed's skill-wise being damn near twice as hard as Hopeless Pursuit, you gotta hit a 50-50 shot of just dying. Because you have to guess...
Their board's really empty, their graveyard's really empty, they're really playing around fucking whatchamacallit.
Sometimes by the third plushie before 4 AM.
Not a bad idea.
Never been able to do this passive time. So, on top of skill-wise being awful, Hopeless Greed now adds in a good old brutal RNG. If you manage to survive the second plushie, make sure by the third plushie 5 AM, as it only becomes viable once that 5 AM visual changes appear.
I'm hoping once I Forbidden Droplet their board that they're just gonna scoop. Because I need another Drytron name or else I'm fucked.
Despite being so much harder to I had to do this
Jacking the hand would be so fucking bad. I really don't agree to playing Drytron with just the smallest 40 size deck. Although a lot of my problems would be removed so easily if I just decided to fucking... remove Ruin. I swear she's useful. This is a passable end board. That would have been good if he was able to keep Mubeta on field as an extra negate. That is potentially gonna be enough.
Significantly harder, and the puppet is one of these characters. I was so nervous with fluking so much time in this run that I forgot to wind the music box the whole way. If I had stayed on the box for, I kid you not, 0.2 more seconds, I would have beat Hopeless Greed right here, at the end of one of the cleanest games I have ever played, and I cannot put into words how devastating this fail was. For starters,
I didn't need to negate Don Dragster.
4 seconds cost me. It took me 8 days until I had another run that even looked like it had a prospect of winning. Every day that went by, I knew was another day this already ridiculously delayed video was going to be delayed even further, and it destroyed me. I could not get that 0.4 second loss out of my head. For the first time that night, I actually had a dream about selling on a hopeless rerun of some stupid bullshit, and at this point, I finally cracked. I don't have footage from this time period. I was leaving all the unsuccessful attempts that I had to save storage space because my hopeless person order was literally terabytes in size, but I finally got back to the point where I was just straight up raging out. I had been playing and watching and ending this stupid game for 3 whole months, and I was so close to finally being done and having a break, and I robbed again. I'd literally beaten it, so now I do all that again. That 5:59 was the final test of willpower for UCN Deluxe. A few nights later, I had a major shift in mentality. It had already been 3 months of non-stop torture and nothing else, and I had finally had enough. Do you know how much I had seen these last 3 months? You know what? Fine. Give me all you got. Do your worst. I'll enjoy this. I'll enjoy being pushed past my breaking point over and over again, because you know what? It makes me strong. Every time I do these stupid challenges day in and day out, it will always make me stronger, and I will always keep fighting no matter what. I knew that to truly make a statement out of our bones, it was time to go into uncharted territory and be the first person to complete the new hardest FNAF challenge. When I started this channel, I was dying on 1020
Oh.
FNAF to Toybani, and now here we are, about
Effective.
to face the new hardest FNAF challenge. This is hopeless greed.
Unfortunately, they have the Drytron effect. Yeah, it's Jover. Oh no, wait, their Drytron counts as my Drytron.
I realized that
I mean,
I
it doesn't do anything, but
But this time, I wasn't gonna let RNG determine whether or not I win. It was time to go for all 3 plushies before 4 a.m.
this is a miserable matchup, ain't it? There isn't even a point in a called by, unless they side deck Droll and Lock, in which case I'll be really upset. It's not a bad choice. I don't agree with it, but if it wins them the game, then obviously, you know, no one's...
With 7 seconds remaining in the night, the goal of max points met and the death coin bought, I had a tough decision to make. I could either wait in the office and hope that I don't let it puppet like last time, or just say screw it and go into the camera.
We only have one goal to here.
Going into the cameras could be risky. I had to end the night on Funtime Foxy's camera or else I would die at 6 a.m. For just last 5 seconds, I have to have the perfect aim.
And it should be obvious. Although honestly, just setting up enough negates will do as well, cause they could have Forbidden Droplet and that'll be game for us. Diviner showed up in our hand. It might even be Divine Providence, you know?
Yes! Oh my god. Oh my god. I finally beat HG. Holy shit! Oh. Holy. Oh my god.
Yeah, Forbidden Droplet's very scary. We may as well play as hard as we possibly can, right?
2 559s. I don't even believe it's real yet until I rewatch the recording and make sure it's fucking real. I don't even believe it's real.
That is... Why do you always only ever give me bad cards?
Did you do this? You know how much fucking shit I'm built up
They have something? They have an Nibiru? No? What was that for? That was scary.
I was finally finished with Hopeless Pursuit. Challenge in the entire world. If you've watched this far into the video, this has been quite the journey. I've spent over 3 months on this project total, and your viewership truly means the world to me. I also want to inform everyone here that my Discord server no longer exists. There was a lot of pressing issues with the server, and Discord as a whole for me, and it was beginning to get too big for me to handle and moderate the new standard that I wanted for it. However, if you guys would like to send me a fan art of this gorgeous piece by Melee on Insta, you can DM my Instagram account at Bones5, and I'll feature it in upcoming videos during the outros. Speaking of absolutely gorgeous artwork pieces, I'd like to thank all the wonderful animators that worked with me during this project. Zintara made the intro to HPC, and you can find her on Tumblr and Discord at Zintara. Hazel the Rockstead made the skeleton.
Oh, they do have Nibiru, what the fuck?
Rockstead or on Discord as the real Rockstead. More committed to all the sound design for all the scenes, and you can find her on YouTube with SoundCloud. Blue Sky has not included her. Crestoli is the performer of
That's not as bad as you might think.
as Crestoli. Aaron Zilli is the Shadow Bones and Cassie right before the Hopeless Pursuit montage, and you can find them as usual Zilli on YouTube and Blue Sky. Pigeon AX and Ocean Raytheon both did the Hopeless Pursuit edits. You can find Pigeon AX on YouTube and Ocean Raytheon on Instagram and Twitter.
We have a trump card.
Right after the Skeleton Bones transformation, and you can find them as Sister Lord on Blue Sky and Twitch. And 80 of the Skeleton Bones
As long as I'm not forced to activate it early, we should be fine.
Massive thank you to all the animators for helping me make this video the best it can possibly be. I'd also like to thank Ren and Spiel for making the new design for the Skeleton Bones. You can find him as Ren and Spiel on Instagram, and leave a note and original comic title of the universe at basemania.com, which I personally am a big fan of.
They also need to not activate fucking whatchamacallit. I guess it's my mistake for thinking everyone builds Drytron the same way I do.
And despite not really having anything harder than Hopeless Greed, I'm sure I can make something up that's at least on par with it. Generally, there are 5 pillars that I've identified as games that have super hard maximums that you can work up to, and I will definitely get around to all of them at some point, as we've only conquered 1 so far. I do want to throw in some non-FNAF content a bit more, 1 to give my body a break, and 2, you guys seem to really enjoy the last one FNAF video. Overall, Hopeless Pursuit, Hopeless Greed, and life events that have happened to me during the process of making this video have put me through more mental trouble than I've ever really faced before. And though Hopeless Pursuit and Greed completely broke me mentally on multiple occasions, in the end,
You're not gonna use Black Rose Dragon, not in this state. Huh. That makes enough sense. That makes enough sense. Oh, they were holding that. Oh, this is gonna be miserable, and I don't think I'm gonna win, no matter what I do. Lol. That's not gonna do it.